Us country folk would just soon tackle a grizzly bear. We'll bristle all up. We don't need the fancy stuff. We don't need the fancy stuff. Welcome back, folks. It is cloudy today. We got another snowstorm moving in tonight. So I've been busy getting everything ready for that. It just seems to never stop. You prepare for the storm, you ride the storm out, and then you clean up the storm, and just as soon as you get that storm cleaned up, another one moves in. So you're preparing, you're hunkering down, you're cleaning up. You know, I've been getting a lot of support from you folks, a lot of new subscribers. Thank you very much for the nice comments. Appreciate that greatly. My family and friends have been very supportive. And I didn't even know they even knew anything about it, but apparently word gets around. But I just want to remind you folks that if you like any of what my channel has for videos, you can subscribe. I'd appreciate that. There's also a little bell next to the right hand side of that subscribe. And if you tap on that, anytime I post a video, it will send you a message letting you know that I have posted another video. I was told this morning that they subscribed, but they weren't getting notifications, and that's why. Just press that bell icon, subscribe, press the bell icon. If you like this and think somebody else may like this, you can go ahead and share the videos. But you know, I've got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas in my life. I used to work in the mental health field. Matter of fact, that's what I went to college for, mental health. And I used to work in psychosocial rehab. Learned a lot about mental health. You can learn an awful lot about a lot of things in college. Nothing prepares you for the experience that you will gain. So I have learned that if someone with a significant mental health issue does not take their meds, then they could be a danger to themselves or others. So it's important that if you have a heart problem, to take your medication. If you've got a mental illness, to take your medication. But what happens if the shit hits the fan and nobody could get their medication? What about the drug addicts? I can tell you right now, I would not want to be in any city if the shit hits the fan. No, they would raid just about any drugstore they could. Look what happened out in California. They just went in droves and took what they wanted. You get somebody that is addicted to drugs, and all of a sudden they couldn't get those drugs, they become very, very dangerous. Well, I used to work also in a homeless shelter. You saw it all at a homeless shelter. You saw the ones that just fell hard on times. You've got those that were wanderers and nomads that just liked that lifestyle. You've got those with mental illness. They're paranoid schizophrenics. They don't trust anything or anybody. And if they're not on their meds, they could be very dangerous. So when I was working in the homeless shelter, At one time there was this big man. He was probably close to 7 feet, about this wide. It was cold. He came from down south, I think Georgia. And he had, whether somebody gave him the jacket that he was wearing, or he just took it. But he had on this white jacket with the hood, with the fur around the edge of the hood, and it came up to about here. It didn't fit his shoulders, so it was like a 300-pound man trying to fit into a woman's large jacket. It just didn't look right, and it didn't look comfortable. But he came in, and I'm about 5'5" and a half, and he was way up there. So to talk to him, I had to do this. And he informed me that he was coming to take his mother back home. Well, I didn't know if his mother was staying at the homeless shelter where I worked or not, so I asked, what her name was. And he said, didn't recognize the name. And he says, I know you've got her buried underneath this building. I know she's down under my feet, and I've come to dig her up and bring her back home. My co-worker at the time, she looked at me and she started backing right up. Well, she could only back up so far behind the counter. And she reached for my shirt tail and she started hauling me backwards. Well, there's no place for me to go either. I could jump over the counter, which was about 4 feet high. I could go around the back, because there was an escape route out the back, but he was already coming through that little horse door, that little swinging door on a hinge. And he stood there. And he was determined that I buried his mother underneath that building. Well, I told him I'm sorry he felt that. And, we'll see what we can do about that. Because you don't want to argue with them. If someone is psychotic, you're not going to argue with them. That's the worst thing you can do. So he stepped closer. And his arms were, I swear to God, his arms were 4 feet long. I sized up the length of his arms and I backed up even more. Because he meant business. I made my way to the back corridor and knocked on the director's door. He was in a meeting. And, told him that, he was needed out front. Yeah, he said, just a minute. I said, oh, no, you need to come out now, please. And he stood up, and my coworker opened that door right up and said, you need to come out here. Well, he come out. I can't remember which one of us. It could have been me. It could have been my coworker. Somebody called the police to let them know that there might be a little issue. So, if the mentally ill are off their meds, and I feel really bad for anybody that has a mental illness. They don't choose that. They don't like it. They don't want it. There was one man who was a paranoid schizophrenic. he hid out in the woods by himself. And it was winter. It was this time of year. And he had hauled through the woods 6 discarded mattresses, bed mattresses, and he laid them on the ground. He slept on top of that. He admitted that he stole a tarp from somebody's backyard, made a little tent. He said he was warm enough. He kept warm, but he was hungry. Even though he was a paranoid schizophrenic off his medication, didn't trust anything or anybody, he came into the homeless shelter. And he did not look very well at all. We gave him a plate of food. He ate that plate of food so fast that he ate it and then he went into the bathroom, threw it up because it was too much on his stomach all at once. He ate too fast. We gave him another plate, encouraged him to slow down his eating. He scoffed that up, went back in the bathroom. It took 3 plates before he slowed down. He was that hungry. He was that hungry. So if somebody is hungry, or if their kids were hungry, don't you think they won't be trying to find some food to feed not only their belly, but their children's bellies? Don't you think that if you were addicted to a substance, drug abuse, and they could no longer get that medication, they would do anything and everything to get that medication, even if you was in the way. If you was in the way, you would no longer be in the way, unless you had a means to protect yourself. If you've got the means and the storage space for 10,000 rounds of ammunition, that's good. Ammunition is pretty hefty in weight. I don't even know what 10,000 rounds of ammunition would weigh. Is it for a sidearm? Are they for shotguns? Are they slugs? Are they rifle cartridges? Whatever. There's other forms of defense, folks. It doesn't always have to be guns. Guns are nice. But there's other forms of defense. Now you take the good old country girls and boys. There's grit and tenacity in them. It's ingrained in them. It's in their blood. You don't mess with country folk. You just don't do it. You just don't mess with country folk. Country folk get things done. It doesn't always have to be ammunition. You take a man that's been betrayed, that anger and hurt. You also want to be careful of a woman scorned. You want to be careful to threaten a family member or to do harm to a family member. But we can protect our own. We don't have to have 10,000 rounds. I still say 10,000 rounds is pretty excessive. In the country, pretty excessive. Now, if you was in the city, I don't know. I've never lived in a city. I don't know. I know out in the country, we have ingenuity. Not to say some of you out in the cities don't. You have a whole different set of survival skills that I don't. But here in the country, I know the woods that I live in. I know just about every tree. I know every everything that is edible to eat in this area. I know where the game are. I know what comes out at night. I probably could find out where they hunkered down in a storm.